Hello there, world history people. Let's go ahead and finish the Cold War with Mikhail Gorbachev. He's a pretty important person for world history. Time Magazine Man of the Year. And he was the new leader of the Soviet Union in 1985, and he will be the last leader of the Soviet Union. It was a whole lot of choices that he made that's ultimately going to end the second most powerful country in the world around the time when I was born. So let's first of all talk about Mikhail Gorbachev. He was by far the youngest general secretary the Soviet Union ever had, and he was the only person who was ever born during the Soviet Union. I don't think he really had a serious military experience. He just kind of worked his way up through party politics, and he was a guy who had a lot of radical new ideas for how to make the Soviet Union better, and during the time he was elected, the Soviet Union was having a lot of problems that I said in the last couple videos. So Gorbachev had some ideas for solutions, but his solutions will ultimately end up destroying the country. So let's check it out. Alright, so change, and there they are electing Gorbachev to be president. Oh, and actually, something I want to show you about Gorbachev, actually we'll see it on better pictures, but he has this weird birthmark on his head. So that's always a way you can tell if it's Gorbachev or not. Alright, moving on. So Gorbachev called for fast-paced technological modernization and increased industrial and agricultural productivity. He also tried to reform the Soviet bureaucracy to be more efficient and prosperous instead of being so corrupt. So many people in the Soviet Union just kind of put their brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters in positions of power, but he was like, no, we got to put the best people in charge. And here he also is saying, we got to have a lot more technology, and we got to have a lot more agricultural productivity, and we got to reform the bureaucracy. And I'll tell you more stuff he tries to do as well. And I'm going to argue, Gorbachev tried to change too much too fast. And, you know, if you're playing the game Jenga, and you've got this really difficult to balance tower, you don't want to take out the pieces really, really fast, because all that motion will just cause the tower to collapse. And I think in a big way, that's what happened with the Soviet Union. Okay, so here's Gorbachev when he was elected. So the Soviet Union was already cracking, and now Gorbachev's objective was to put it back together and make it better than it even used to be. And yep, so the world's starting to open up after the Soviet Union, and here's some of Gorbachev's ideas. Okay, so the war in Afghanistan, the disaster at Chernobyl, that actually happens a couple years into his term. And all these people defecting and especially leaving out of Germany. Global oil prices also dramatically decreased during this time. Ronald Reagan, he made all these deals with oil companies that made OPEC's control over the world go way down. And the Soviet Union got a lot of their money by selling oil and natural gas. So they weren't making so much money doing that anymore. The Soviet Union started going into debt, and they were totally broke. The Soviet economy just couldn't keep up with the rest of the world. So let's check it out. This is the idea, this sinking ship of the USSR, and all of these new countries are going to leave this sinking ship. And here's Gorbachev looking at all the skeletons in the closet. It's kind of all these problems that happened even before he was elected. And corruption on the economy is killing the Soviet Union. Okay, and another thing that was kind of especially happening around the time Gorbachev was elected is the information age, is this new historical concept. Personal computers started in the United States in the 1970s, but then they started to become widely available in the 1980s and especially the 1990s. The Soviet Union really didn't have serious computers. They really didn't have anybody like Steve Jobs to invent the personal computer that everybody could operate and use on their own. And so all these new technological changes are going to make America and the West way more attractive, and the Soviet Union's getting left behind in the dust. All right, so there's Steve Jobs right there. Look at this, the Tandy 1000 TX, $1,200. What? These things were so expensive when they first came out, but they progressively get cheaper and cheaper. All right, and then, yeah, so here's the Soviet Union messing with some old American computers. And, all right. So, some countries in the USSR sphere, especially the country of Poland, began demanding more freedoms, and they were upset with the low standard of living, okay? They saw all this cool stuff happening in the United States. They heard about computers with Steve Jobs, and so they're like, man, we want all this stuff. So they're having these massive public protests called the Solidarity Movement. And it wasn't anything terribly violent. It was just people walking around protesting, saying they wanted these reforms, saying that they thought the Soviet Union was bad. And the Solidarity Movement, I mean, this is a part of the Cold War, so the United States is like, hey, this is anti-Soviet, we're going to give these people money. So, boom, making it happen. All right. And in 1988, Gorbachev made some pretty bigger changes, too. He said he wanted the Soviet Union to open up. He wanted to have dream communism again, like Lenin described. So he gave the Soviet people freedoms that they never had before. Freedom of speech, freedom to form different political parties. And all these countries that were kind of under the umbrella of the Warsaw Pact and the Iron Curtain, he said, hey, if you guys don't want to be a part of the Soviet Union anymore, you can leave. It's your choice. And Gorbachev, he really hoped that just kind of by showing a different side of the Soviet Union, like, we're this happy country, we're not going to send our military anymore. He thought that the world would, I don't know, be more attracted to communism and like it more. But in fact, the opposite's going to happen, and people are going to be like, oh, you're not going to shoot us? Well, now we're going to leave. Yeah, he also opened up the freedom of the press, allowed people to give him public criticism, and he really tried to learn from his mistakes. So, look, I think Gorbachev is a very commendable human being, but when you put this authentically nice guy in charge of a dictatorship country like the Soviet Union, and he just kind of lets it all go, all the defenses are going to come down and the whole country is going to crack. All right. So, glasnost and pestroika, it means openness in Russian, and so that's a little thing showing that. Okay. Yeah, I already said this. Gorbachev announced the Soviet Union would no longer enforce rules with their military, and everyone could determine their own affairs. So, pretty cool. All right, so here's Gorbachev kind of like showing peace and love with the Soviet Union, and the military is now fading away. Here's Gorbachev with his weird birthmark on his head, hanging out with Ronald Reagan. They were like buddies. And yep, here's Soviet Union giving up. And then, so Gorbachev is holding baby glasnost. But what does baby glasnost want? Freedom and democracy, okay? And freedom and democracy doesn't really work so well with communism. Okay, so many of the former allies of the USSR, they all declare their independence. They no longer want to be associated with this broke, technologically weak master country that for the first time ever was giving them the permission to finally leave. Okay, so communism. Distribute all the money among the players. All right, why would anyone ever play this game? It wouldn't really be a fun game. Okay, capitalism. Yeah, you're working really hard. Your boss gets a lot of money. Communism. You work, you give the money to yourself. But it doesn't, like, this is the dream, kids. And it's like, oh, capitalism is clearly bad because the workers don't get money. Communism, the workers get money. But with every historical example of communism, you just replace the boss with the government. And this version is still applicable to the Soviet Union because the Soviet government were the people with all the high positions of power, and they're the ones who got treated the best. Okay? The world generally desired capitalist economic models during this time. Everyone wants the chance to become rich. If you're living in a true communist socialist society, you don't have anything to look forward to. It doesn't matter how much education you get. It doesn't matter how good you are at your job. You're always going to make the same, and there's no better future to dream of. But in places like the United States, and look, some kids will argue against me here, but the general truth is, if you work harder, if you are smarter, if you are a better person, you tend to make more money, and you tend to have a chance to be rich. And Russian people especially saw all this media from the United States and heard about computers and heard about Hollywood and this stuff. And they're like, wow, what if I could make it there too? What if I could become a rich person someday? And that's what was really changing the culture of the people of the Soviet Union at this time. Okay, so here's the rise and fall of the Soviet economy. So here's the USA on top, and here's the USSR in the bottom. So when the Cold War began, the US still had more money, but it only had, I don't know, double, maybe triple the money of the Soviet Union. But by the time we get to 1990, the USA has probably 8 times the money of the Soviet Union. So the USA always had a better economy, but the US economy was growing far faster than the Soviet economy ever was. And by the time the Soviet Union collapses, their economy starts going a lot more down. So it's really discouraging for the Soviet Union. All right, and here's some more stuff about GDP. But as you can see, Russia goes way down in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And this is really going to signify the end of the Cold War. And here's a quote by Winston Churchill. "Socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. Its inherent virtue is the equal sharing of misery." Ugh. Okay, and this is what I always like to do in the classroom. I say, hey kids, look at this stuff right here. What do you see? You see a mansion, you see a big old buffet of food, you see a crazy fancy car. Is it possible that you could own this stuff and eat this stuff in your life? Okay, like yes, you would have to work a lot. Okay, maybe you could get lucky on the stock market. Maybe you could, there are jobs. There is a path that you could envision to acquire these things in your life. And heck, in the United States, especially living in Las Vegas, you just pay like $30, go to a buffet, and you can eat all this stuff any day. All right, but everybody can buy these things in the United States. But in the Soviet Union, this is all you had to look forward to. Okay, it didn't matter if you were a doctor or a rocket scientist or a janitor or a sewer cleaner guy. This was your life every day. You ate a bunch of basic food, you drove around in a crappy car, you lived in one of these big tenement-style apartments, you had to fight over the few loaves of bread that were produced every day. So there was no better future to dream of, and it just crushes people's desire to work. All right, so yeah, and here's this is the line of, I think, just people waiting to try to get some food. Here's a lady looking at this pretty disgusting food to eat. And okay, so between 1989 and 1992, after Gorbachev gave the all clear to quit the Soviet Union, everybody quit the Soviet Union. Even the country of Russia quit the Soviet Union. So it's like, okay. And so that whole Soviet sphere of influence, all these countries had popular revolutions, losing the shackles of communism, and adopting capitalist democracy. So here's a bunch of people doing protests. And even though Gorbachev had no intention of destroying the Soviet Union, he just didn't want to use military force to keep people in line, he kind of unwarrantingly gave everybody the ability to go capitalist. But he never intended that. Okay, so all these countries are falling like dominoes. And yep, here's people standing to resist the military. Okay, and the most visible break from the Soviet Union happened in Germany, where people tore down the Berlin Wall, all right? And Ronald Reagan famously said, tear down this wall, and there he is actually chipping the thing away, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, because in the past, the people of Germany were afraid that if they tore down the wall, then the Soviet military would, shoot them and kill the people, but Gorbachev said, okay, the military's not going to fight. So they're like, all right, well, we're going to tear this sucker down. And that's exactly what they did. So, and the people of Germany got reunited again. So good work about that. Tearing down the Berlin Wall, reuniting the people of Germany, making everything way, way better in the world. Look at these 1980s punks tearing down the wall with a pickaxe. That's cool. All right. Yeah, when Russia eventually quit the Soviet Union too, Gorbachev, he decided to officially end the USSR. So here's some people cutting out the USSR from the flag. And Gorbachev is still alive today in 2021. He's still living. And what does he do all day? He sings songs and does Pizza Hut commercials. I think that is so hilarious that a person of such incredible global historical significance now is participating in capitalism and advertising Pizza Hut. Like, wow, that amazes my mind. Here he is hanging out with Joe Biden, the current president of the United States, and Barack Obama in the White House. There's Gorbachev right there. And there they are cutting out the thing. And 1989, the dawn of freedom. That's when so many of these movements happened in 1989. But I think the Soviet Union officially ended in 92. But it's close enough for me. All right. So yeah, America officially won the Cold War. Did we ever have a nuclear apocalypse? No. Did we ever militarily engage with the Soviets directly? No. We just outlasted them. We sort of won the economic and cultural victory. And what it was is the Soviet people continually heard stories about the United States, about how there was so much of a variety of food to choose from, about how some people lived in mansions and some people owned boats. And people from the Soviet Union, like, they didn't believe it. Like, they thought that it was just a lie. Like, there's no way a country could make that much stuff and sell it to all their people. But we certainly did, okay? People want to achieve kind of this American dream. And look, it's true that America has people who are poor. We have people who are homeless. The Soviet Union generally didn't have people who were poor or homeless. But everybody in the Soviet Union was like lower middle class. And that's not a life that people aspire to live. People aspire for better. So that's why capitalism always is going to win in the end. Okay, the end of the Soviet Union. Here's Soviet Coca-Cola made in the Soviet Union. I'd really love to try that, actually. That'd be kind of cool. All right, Goodbye Lenin. This is a really good movie that talks about the end of the Soviet Union, actually. And then, yep, here's the American Dream. Look, you've got your kids, you've got this backyard pool, all this stuff. Soviet people would have loved all this. And then here they are tearing down statues of Lenin. All right, and so Russia today. Russia today is still ruled by a dictator named Vladimir Putin. He's keeping this economic system going. And there's a lot of hardships and social problems in Russia. I've personally never been to Russia, but I've had friends who've gone. And they don't really have a lot of positive things to say. Russia today is still kind of a mess. They still got a whole lot of military equipment, that's for sure. So, fair warning. All right, so, and these are some political stuff that kind of like talks also about the end of the Cold War. So now that the Soviet Union collapsed, it's sort of like, do we need NATO anymore? Europe says it's been stuck like that since the end of the Cold War. And here's Obama being like, we need a bigger oil can to make NATO work again. And so here's Putin trying to thaw out the Russian bear, maybe reignite the Cold War. Here's a lot of people hanging out in Russia. Trump really hates NATO. Here's a tweet of his saying that NATO is obsolete and we've got to get rid of it. And I mean, look, NATO was our alliance to fight the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union isn't around anymore. So do we need it? That's a fair question, I think. All right, so that's it for me with this Prezi Unit. Peace out.